Today, my brothers and sisters, we are going to continue the series on the Crusades. And this one is called Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa. 1212, and I hope I can pronounce those correctly there, and ting. You know, welcome back, and ting. I'm Mr. Giant, and I'm back with some more vibes for all you. And we ain't gonna talk too much, you know what I mean? We're gonna keep looking into this crusade vibe here and ting, you know what I mean? Let's YouTube and simmer.
Charles Martel and his Franks stopped the Muslim invasion during the Battle of Tours in 732. And because of this, they are often lauded as the saviors of Europe. But it was the peoples of the Pyrenean Peninsula who, despite early setbacks, resisted the Muslims for centuries. Eventually, the Spaniards and the Portuguese started taking back their lands and what was called the Reconquista, or the
Reconquista.
Welcome to our new video on the Reconquista and the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa and the Kings and Generals documentary series. Thank you for your interest in our videos. Hopefully you will like, share, and subscribe right away, as that would assist us immensely. So please subscribe today. Now on to the video. The Muslim Caliphate conquered vast territories from Central Asia to North Africa in less than a century. By 708, the Muslims had reached and conquered modern-day Morocco. The warriors of Islam were now just 50 kilometers away from Europe, and in 711, Berber General Tariq launched an invasion into Hispania. At this point,
You want to know what intrigues me? Is how long this battle between Christians and Muslims have been going on. You know what I mean? And nobody thinks about the longevity of this situation. You know, everybody thinks it's something new. You know, and well, not everybody. There are some of us who actually pay attention to history, realize that politricksters have been using this for years and years to go out there and, you know, conquer. And no, I'm not saying that within the realm of things there's not true believers on either side, but the point is that politicians realize the power of using religion to rile people up to start wars and stuff like that. I'm not saying that all of the time is that intentions, because some rulers and leaders are probably true believers who think that's the way things should be. But we do know there are charlatans that come along and use religion to control people, to manipulate people and things, you know what I mean? Because, okay, like for instance, a lot of people talk about Islam here. Where I live is like a Bible Belt area, but they really don't know nothing about it. They really don't know nothing about the history of it. They just go with what politicians tell them, you know, and they believe it. And on the flip side, I'm absolutely sure that in countries that are predominantly of the Islamic faith, the same thing happened, you know. There's leaders who use that as a way to control them and as a way to control everybody else. Same thing goes for both sides. But let's keep watching. This is really interesting when you sit back and you go, wait a minute now, this thing has been going on for centuries. For centuries, y'all. Let's keep watching.
the old Roman province was under control of a Visigothic kingdom. Muslim forces landed in Gibraltar, which in translation for Arabic means the Mount of Tariq. Although their forces only numbered around 12,000 strong, they started conquering the land and decisively defeating the Visigoths of King Roderick in 712 at the Battle of Guadalete. Shortly after, the capital, Toledo, was occupied. The Visigoth kingdom collapsed, and in just 7 years all of the Pyrenees were subdued, save for some remote mountainous regions. The ancestors of the Basques, the people called the Viscones, were not eager to surrender. Their small force led by nobleman Pelagius.
Here's another thing, you know what I mean? Because look, Battle of Toledo. Just up the way here, I guess about 3 hours, is a place called Toledo, Ohio. And a lot of people seem that they want to distance themselves from certain parts of history, but they still keep the names, you know what I mean? And as I'm going through watching all this historical stuff, a lot of the names come from back in the day, but there's not any changes going on in the names. You know, oh, let's forget them, you know, because that's them. This is the new world, you know what I mean? But the new world have a bunch of places named after the old world. It's really weird how some people think, you know. Let's keep going.
Defeated the Muslims in 718 at the Battle of Covadonga. Pelagius was able to form a new state in the northern part of the peninsula, and it was called Asturias. His victory is considered the event that kick-started the Reconquista. The Muslims saw very little gain in attempting to pacify this inhospitable region and set their eyes on France. Between 719 and 759, their forces tried to invade the Franks on multiple occasions, but every time were stopped. Back in Spain, the new king of Asturias, Alfonso I, took Pamplona and then most of Galicia by 750. The Muslims also had their share of internal problems, as in the same year the ruling Umayyad dynasty was toppled by the Abbasids. One of the last remaining members of the Umayyads, Abd al-Rahman, managed to save his life and take over Cordoba in 756. He formed an independent emirate and unified most of Muslim Spain under his control within the next 25 years. The emirs attempted to take over the northern part of the peninsula, but were stopped in 794. During the Battle of Lutos, Muslim forces were wiped out by King Alfonso II of Asturias. To the east, Christians formed a new kingdom of Pamplona. Eventually, this state would transform into the Kingdom of Navarre, while Asturias became known as the Kingdom of Leon. Two countries were allied in their attempts to drive back the emirate, but this alliance was defeated during the Battle of Aldenquera. This defeat would be the greatest the Christians suffered during the Reconquista. The Emirate of Cordoba felt influential enough to declare itself a caliphate. This was a symbol showing that they were just as great as the Abbasid or Fatimid caliphates. Despite this, the King of Leon, Ramiro II, managed to defeat Cordovan forces in 939 at the Battle of Simancas. Unfortunately, the situation in the Kingdom of Leon was not stable, and soon after this victory, Castilla rebelled, and that didn't allow the Christians to continue their reconquest. Eventually, the situation would become more dire in the late 10th century. The Caliph started to spend less time in the state affairs, and nobleman Almanzor became the de facto ruler of the Caliphate. He completely changed the situation in the peninsula, as between 978 and 1002, he managed to defeat all Christian domains on multiple occasions. These kingdoms were forced to pay tribute to Cordoba after their crushing defeat at the Battle of Cervera in 1000. His death in 1002 plunged Caliphate into a civil war that ended with its own collapse. Muslim domain was divided into dozens of warring states called taifas, which can be translated as tribes. It seemed to be the perfect moment for the Christians to strike and take the peninsula back, and so the Navarrese king Sancho III succeeded in the unification of Castile, Leon, and Aragon. However, upon his death, his realm was divided amongst his many sons. This resulted in a number of wars between Castile, Leon, Aragon, and Navarre. Non-stop raids and chaos marked the 11th century. The central figure of the events that took part during the time is Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, who is also known as El Cid. This military leader entered the collective mythos of Spain and the whole of Christendom through his actions. One of the kings he served, Alfonso VI, managed to unite Leon, Castile, and Galicia. By 1077, Alfonso was strong enough to declare himself the Emperor of Spain. Indeed, many Muslim taifas were forced to pay him tribute, and in 1084, he was able to take control of the ancient capital, Toledo. This act worried Muslim entities all over the peninsula, and they asked their southern neighbors, the Almoravid Berbers, for help. The Berbers came to Spain soon and delivered a decisive defeat to Alfonso in 1086 at Sagregas. The Almoravids decided to use the weakness of the Taifas, and by 1110 they occupied the southern part of the peninsula. However, it was too late, as the Christian kingdoms were now receiving significant help from their brethren, and it was showing itself all over the region. In 1139, Portugal was established as a kingdom, and with the aid of the Crusaders, Lisbon was reconquered in 1147. The Berbers were also having problems to the south, as a new sect called the Almohads started to take over Morocco and Spain, and by 1173, this process was concluded. The Almohads represented a more fanatical sect of Islam. While the Muslims were fighting each other, in the north, Spanish kingdoms were building a strong alliance. The Kingdom of Castile, led by Alfonso VIII, launched a campaign into Almohad territory. But during the Battle for Alarcos in 1195, he was heavily defeated, and any dreams of Reconquista was postponed for now. Neither the Almohads nor the Christians were fond of a new balance, and in 1211, the Caliph Muhammad al-Nasir launched across the Strait of Gibraltar with an army 70,000 strong. Pope Innocent III called for a new crusade, with more than 40,000 crusaders coming together in Toledo by the spring of 1212. The kingdoms of Castile, Aragon, Portugal, and Navarre, along with the Knights Templar, Santiago, and Calatrava orders, were a part of this army, and this army would be led by the Castilian king, Alfonso VIII. Never before had Christians or Muslims fielded such large armies in Spain, and this campaign was going to be decisive. The Muslim strategy was simple. Al-Nasir moved most of his forces fast to block passages in the Sierra Moreno Mountains, while sending groups to besiege enemy castles in the area. He thought that the knights will not be able to effectively fight in the mountains, and would soon run out of provisions. Alfonso attempted to cross the mountains in multiple locations, but was blocked. The legend tells that Alfonso's army was approached by a shepherd, who promised to guide them via an undefended passage. This maneuver seemingly surprised al-Nasir, who didn't have his whole army under his command. The armies were now in an area called Las Navas de Tolosa, where the decisive battle for Spain would take place. The Spaniards had to fight uphill. Their army was divided into three groups, with Alfonso in the center with knights from his orders, the King of Aragon Pedro to the left, and the King Sancho of Navarre to the right. Each of the groups were divided into three lines, with infantry in the first, cavalry in the third, and a mix of the two within the second. The Muslims fortified a small position for the Caliph and his guard. The Almohads had all of their cavalry on the left and right, with center occupied by the infantry consisting of local Muslims in the front line and Moroccans in the second. The vanguard of the army consisted of light skirmishers. Everything began with the Muslim cavalry attack on the left and the right. After some initial success, the Muslim riders were counterattacked by knights in the second line. The Caliph's cavalry was pushed back uphill, and Muslim skirmishers in the center retreated on contact, but the second line joined the attack, and the Christian lines were dangerously close to breaking. It is said that at this point, Alfonso even panicked, as he remembered the crushing defeat at Alarcos, and only after encouragement from the clergy, he managed to come to his senses and lead his center in a counterattack. The Spaniards stopped their retreat. The situation was still shaky. However, they would be saved by a brave tactical maneuver of King Sancho himself. The Navarrese ruler saw that most of the enemy was engaged at the center and on the flanks, so he led his knights uphill to attack the Caliph himself. The guard did not expect this move, and the knights were closing in on the Caliph. The Caliph lost heart at this moment and decided to run. As soon as Muslim forces saw that his banner was not present anymore, They broke their lines and attempted to withdraw. Sources claim that the majority of the Almohad army was killed or taken hostage, and the Spaniards were victorious. Although this victory did not bring any immediate results, it was a turning point. The Almohads soon collapsed, and the Muslims never mounted a serious offensive into the Christian Spain, and gradually, region by region, city by city, the Reconquista reclaimed all of the peninsula, with Granada being the last to be reconquered in 1492 by the United Spanish Kingdom. Thanks for watching our newest documentary. We really hope you...
I wonder what the world would be like if a lot of these battles went the other way. Because, I mean, you know, the New World sort of taken away the hard line out of, from my looking at things, take away some of the hard lines of Christianity and then give more of a open sort of thing. Maybe because it became secular, so secular then. Correct me if I'm wrong. Comment down below. Tell me what you all think, all right? Thank you all for watching this with me. I'll leave a link in the description. You go check out Kings and Generals, man. That's a hell of a channel to watch and take, you know. Check out their vibes, you know. In the meantime, all you, take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.